Alright, response video to Pyrrho. I guess I'll put it on the DraftScience channel. What the hell. But YouTube is evil. Google is horrifically evil. And they don't deserve your participation. And yeah, and their advertisers deserve to be burned in effigy and all that kind of stuff. So Old Spice smells like ass. Remember that. And to the rest of them, fuck you. Yeah, really. We've sold out our public square to an evil bastard corporation who just really couldn't give a shit about concepts like fairness. Yeah. No, way too complicated. It's not fire. It's not my house, hopefully. Well, I'll find out when I get home. Yeah, be cool. Anyway, alright, yeah, this logic thing. It's just so irritating, Pyrrho. Look, relationships are not the same as relativism. Relativism has to do with perspective. It doesn't have to do with definition. Relationship has to do with the definition of something's characteristics that it shares with other things. You can have relationships that have no direct contact, that are completely made out of indirect similarity. Like, we are all related in the sense that we're all human. It's not a direct relationship. It's just a qualifying quality. Let's just put it that way. A quality that gives us relationship by the fact of that shared quality. And puts us in a category. So the relationship is actually made out of the distinction. It is not a distinction made out of the relationship. So you're cart before the horsing here all over the place. It really doesn't matter what squirrels think of trees. We're not talking about squirrels. We're talking about language. And what is language capable of? And what is language doing? And my argument remains, you say, you make these distinctions. You know, that words aren't identifying. It's not describing, it's identifying or something. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Words describe, define, distinguish, categorize. They do all of this stuff because they define what are identifiable characteristics of a thing's thingness. And that's what the words are doing. They're describing the thing. And part of the thing is definitely its relationship. But its relationship is, both things in a relationship have their own set of identifiers. And you do not define a thing rarely, merely, clearly, singularly, by its relationship to something else. It has other characteristics. It has other relationship. It has other potential to be categorized, to be described and defined, and all that crap. And so it isn't, again, this is, you are using the fact that we have poor language. I mean, words that are way too ambiguous, like hot. You know, it doesn't say enough. It's too ambiguous. And because we have some imprecise language, you're saying there's no precision in reality. That's just bullshit. So going back to your idiotic squirrel analogy, the squirrel's perception, its different point of view, does not change the reality of a tree. It might add more information to our knowledge base if we could solicit from the squirrel information about how it sees the tree, or feels the tree, or senses the tree. Maybe it's gleaning information that we could add to our understanding of tree. But it wouldn't undo what we've established tree to be, because all of the things we've established are also identifiable characteristics of tree. Our definition can be expanded, it can be refined, it can be made more explicit. We can say thermonuclear device. And a lot of things could fall into that category. Then we could be more explicit. And we could say intercontinental ballistic missile with a thermonuclear device as part of its configuration. And now we've established something else. We've narrowed what we're describing. And all that is what makes it objective and absolute. And the only thing that prevents us is the fact that, yes, it takes a lot of words. If you want to say it correctly and precisely and absolutely, all you have to do is qualify it enough, which is made quite obvious by the Barklord nonsense, where you pour water out of one cup and put it in another cup, and then talk about how you've done something besides change a 1 into a 2. I mean, there's no, how to even argue this? If you're going to take advantage of ambiguous language to say the world is ambiguous, that's bullshit. All right? The only thing that's ambiguous is our poor, our shabby, our sloppy definitions of the truth. So once we make a little effort to qualify what we're saying, it can be said in an absolute manner. There are accurate, undeniable statements that can be made about this rock at this moment in time that can be made to be beyond any refutation, beyond any rational contest. And that's all we can do. I mean, quite obviously, we can't prove anything beyond all phantasmagorical, made-up bullshit doubt, but we can establish things beyond contest, beyond reasonable dispute, and that's the best we can do. But there is one reality, Pyro, and you want to keep making up this crap that if I'm walking down this path from the other direction or something, that somehow the reality is different. No, it's the same world we're navigating. We're just quite obviously navigating it from different points. But the reality itself is not different because somebody's approaching it from a different angle. And that's the point here, is perspective can add knowledge. It can refine the definition because you can see more. You can see more detail. Or you can see where your definition does lack precision because I don't know, you just make up something. We never see the dark side of the moon. So yeah, maybe if we saw the dark side of the moon, we'd see it had a butt. And that would have to change our description of the moon. Because we'd have to explain why the moon has a butt. But anyway, where am I going with this? But the point is, it wouldn't change the fact that we know the orbit of the moon. Wouldn't change what we know about the surface of the moon we do see. All those conclusions, all those facts would still be perfectly legitimate and real. All those distinctions would still be 99% of the knowledge base would be uninterrupted by the butt finding. And all you'd be doing is augmenting an imperfection in the previous understanding. You wouldn't be creating a new understanding. I mean, this sort of relates to the to be serious argument where she keeps talking about, evolution and Darwin as if there's some sort of Darwin 2.0 out there, where there's some other mechanism besides natural selection creating some sort of nonsense, like altruism as a biological function, which is just such crap. Fuck you people. Anyway, let's see if there's anything else I gotta say in here. I just don't know whether, part of the language problem in terms of the imprecision of our language, which leads to these imprecise statements, which you take advantage of to make up phantasmagorical bullshit where you start saying batteries aren't batteries, and frogs aren't frogs, and birds aren't birds. yeah, part of the liability of that language is that's what I'm communicating with right now. And so now we're tripping over words like relationship, where I'm using the word to simply describe the fact that words relate to words. Through words, things are given relationship to things that fall into that class. So there are wet things, there are dry things, there's hot things, there's good things, there's bad things. There's all kinds of words that place things in category based on their properties, not based on some relative description, but based, spider, on some sort of real property. And where am I going with that? Yeah, so here we are, stumbling over the very thing I'm arguing is the only defect that you're making your whole relativistic nonsense philosophy out of, which is the fact that we have an inexplicit language, but if we use it carefully and precisely, we can get rid of a lot of the confusions. But yeah, it would be a very strangled communication. If we have to, premise all of our statements with, well, establishing the, nuance convention of 1492, of 1986, where it was established that for the sake of argument and for the purpose of rational conversation, we are agreeing that, yes, this isn't the Matrix, it is a physical material universe. There's no special forces, there's no double magnetism, you don't have a magic wand, there's no witches, there's no goblins. You could go through the whole list of the qualified bullshit that is not going to be allowed into the conversation, the unqualified bullshit. So yeah, we'd have to establish that for the sake of this conversation, leave us understand what language means here. Alright, and when I say shit, I don't mean galactic alien excrement. No, I mean something related to this planet. Whatever. But yeah, anyway, the whole point is it's about the words. But more important, the point I'm trying to get to, all right, is that there is one reality here, and it can be described in pretty precise detail. That everything can be fairly well understood in terms of how it interacts, where its origins are, why it's here, how it functions. We can do all of that. And we do it through language, the logic of language. Because language is just identifiers. There's a distinction. There's a separation. One piece of matter is separate from another piece of matter, creating an identifiable difference, an identifiable distinction. Just like the elements are different. We can identify their difference. We can identify anything, okay, that has established itself as being something separate from everything else. And that's what language is doing. It's providing a means to model what this is. And part of that modeling is logic. Logic is just playing the model out and allowing it to come to its conclusion. And part of the model is once you've established a value for electricity or for money or for what means something, like suffering and happiness. Once you establish these values, then you can put them into the mechanism as real numbers instead of variables, and let the game play. And then you can see, oh, well, let's see, that animal ate 3 other animals. and it had 47,000 hours of kind of nothing time, 27 hours of suffering, and 6 hours of bliss, or whatever the thing is. You come up with a number, an equation, and you say this is the net value. Yeah, so the logic is there in front of us, and we know from what we've established through our own personal experience sometimes, how we would commoditize experience, and we just simply draw the obvious conclusion. So let's see. But of course, in that context, there's all kinds of other influences on our judgment, and our judgment becomes one of the things we analyze as a reality. Do we fairly judge? Or are we biased by our hunger? Is it a contrivance? Or is it real? I mean, all these are legitimate elements of reality to be logically evaluated, run as a reality, because we know the context, we know the mechanism, we know how it was constructed basically, we know why we are what we are. We've dissected the game, we know most of this stuff, what's going on. Alright, yeah, there's still kind of fuzzy GIF images from like 1975 or something. I got a lot of jagged edges, but we can see the shape of things good enough to draw some reliable conclusions, and those conclusions are just drawn by simply equating the A plus B over here with the C plus D over here, when we've established that D's on the right are the same as A's on the left, and C's on the right are the same as B's on the left. And then the logic just takes care of itself, in terms of we have an absolute, a very confident, beyond a reasonable doubt, understanding of that relationship in this context. And when we have a parallel, essentially identical circumstance, we are obligated by the rule of non-contradiction to accept the same kind of straightforward math. At least a conclusion consistent with our previously established conclusions. But again, I just want to get to the point. Logic isn't something we do, it's something we discover. The truth isn't something we make up, it's something we uncover. It's here in the world. This is material reality, is the truth. The truth is built into it, and we discover it, and we understand it. We see it happen by modeling and running the model in our brain, and that's logic. Logic already exists out here. The truth already exists as a fact. We just have to uncover it by modeling reality. And language provides a method for us to do that. You bastards, you. Oh, they're not home.